Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today for our virtual conference. Our topic will be electronic signature and the new eIDAS 2 regulation. Over the next 2 hours, 4 experts will introduce to this topic from legislative and also technological point of view. My name is Hanna Sanitrník-Minaříková, and I am the marketing manager at Monet Plus. My role today is the moderator. Before introducing our first speaker, let me give you some brief information about the organization. During the conference, you will be able to ask us questions in the chat. We will try to answer some of them during the conference, but all answers to your questions will be published later on our website in the event section. We have also posted a simple questionnaire in the chat, and it would be great if you can fill it out. By the way, in the questionnaire, you can choose which of today's presentation you would like to receive by email. The recording from today's conference will be available on our website and will be also emailed to all registered participants. That's all from me for now, and we are ready to welcome our first guests, Mrs. Kristýna Ročen-Dudková and Mr. Tomáš Riedl from Ernst & Young, and they will give us a closer look at the eIDAS 2 regulation, digital signing, and identification. Nice to have you here. The stage is yours.
Hello. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear us. Can someone just confirm that the connection goes smoothly?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Great. So, my name is Tomáš Riedl, and my colleague is Kristýna Ročen-Dudková. We work for a regulatory team in financial services consulting for EY Czech Republic, and we would like to briefly introduce to you today the legal and regulatory framework of electronic signatures in European Union. We think that it's nice to clarify some terms, some terminology, and to give you like a brief introduction over different levels of electronic signatures in European context. So first of all, I would like to stress that the legal background of electronic signatures consists of European EU level and national legal frame. In the European Union, since 2014, we have a regulation that is called eIDAS in short, about electronic identification and trust services for electronic transactions in the internal market. This regulation brought the basic limits to basic regulation to electronic signing, sealing, and stamping, and it stipulates many rules for so-called trust services that would not be today's topic, but just for the sake of completeness. What is, we would say, like brand new is the amendment to this regulation that was brought by Regulation 2024/1183 that is amending this eIDAS regulation, and that is known as eIDAS 2.0 or eIDAS 2. This regulation is mainly known in the public for what is called as European Digital Identity Wallet or eID wallet. That's we will shortly clarify the relations between this identity wallet and electronic signatures, but we will focus on electronic signing mainly. What else is brought by the eIDAS 2 are additional requirements for trust services. And to sum up, we can say that as far as electronic signatures are concerned, there are no, let's say, substantial basic new rules, with two exceptions, and it is about the requirements on management of remote qualified electronic signature creation devices. I would like to stress the word remote, remote signing, let's say. And the other one is the concerns the validation of let's say advanced electronic signatures based on qualified certificates. Let me go to the next page. Here you can see some timeline on implementation of this eIDAS 2. The regulation is shortly enforced since 20th May, and there is a way of 2.5 years until the time, and look at the end of this timeline, that until the time when each member state shall provide at least one European digital identity wallet to its citizens. In the meantime, there are several milestones that requires European Commission to issue, let's say, bylaws or technical regulation concerning either this European digital identity wallet, but also, and look into the middle, that concerns also like qualified certificates for electronic signature and the management of remote devices of, let's say, qualified electronic signing. And also, there is a discretion. It's not a must. It's not an obligation for a commission to issue by 20th May 2026 some specifications and procedures for advanced electronic. Maybe you hear that I used several terms concerning electronic signatures with different adjectives, and we will go through them later in this presentation. Now, if I step aside a little bit of eIDAS and European regulation, maybe we should clarify that from the legal point of view, signing as well as handwritten signing is part of, let's say, civil law or contractual law, and also a public. The civil law mainly in continental European countries, but also several other countries, describe the rules as contractual freedom, how to express the will of the party of a contract, how to make a legal action, what is the role of signature in private doings, private negotiations, and from the, let's say, court or arbitral proceedings point of view, also the means of evidence in case of dispute. Contrary, public law describes the role of, let's say, signing and electronic signing. In our case, vis-a-vis the public authorities, how governments and states or public authorities recognize the different type of signing. It is also important it can be important as a mean of identification, as we are both from financial sector consulting. For us, for example, anti-money laundering rules are like close, and we deal a lot with issues concerning signing and identification in the context of AML regulation. But I believe that also in some other parts of regulation, identification may be important. And that concerns these all, say, public regulation requirements. What we are from the Czech Republic, but what we see in front of our courts, but we believe that the same situation may evoke in other countries as well, is some let's say case law issues that that are not clearly solved yet with regard to electronic signing. For example, in our country, some courts have problem with so-called simple electronic signature, despite the fact that both contractual parties may agree on the style of expression of their will and signing a contract. But anyway, in case of disputes, these let's say the most simplest form of electronic signatures cannot be enough in case of some dispute in front of the courts. It concerns, for example, also just writing or citing your name and surname at the end of email. And it all leads us to, let's say, assessment of provability and persuasiveness of these simple electronic signature as a legal evidence in case of some troubles. Of course, if both parties are willing to perform and in constant, there is no case of problem with electronic with any kind of electronic communication. Now, please back to eIDAS and eIDAS 2. There are, for us, let's say, 7 most fundamental definition brought by this regulation. In 2014, eIDAS introduced the definition of electronic signature, seal, and timestamp. To make it short, electronic signature is connected with natural physical person, with human beings. I would say just with one who has a hand to write, to sign. And so it's an electronic substitute for written kind of written signature. Electronic seal is in practice mostly connected with legal entities. But what is interesting that eIDAS doesn't say that it must be connected only with legal entities, and this data in electronic form, let's say, confirm the origin and integrity of some document. I think a good example is bank account statement. It's not a legal action, but it's a kind of, let's say, paper or document that has an origin in a bank, and bank confirms by an electronic seal, or may confirm by an electronic seal, that its document. And timestamp is another electronic data that guarantees that the document concerned is keeping its legal validity through the time. So it's something, let's say, dynamic. It guarantees like dynamic validity. eIDAS 2 brought a broad definition of European digital identity wallet that has a 2 main content. One is identification of a person, and the other one is possibility to start. But the first one is the most important, the more important element of eID. eIDAS 2 also amended definition of electronic identification and provides a new definition of authentication, something like confirmation of identification and validation that relates to. And now I give floor to my colleague, Christina.
Thank you very much. I will now tell you something about the levels of electronic signatures, because there are several or a couple of levels of electronic signature. The most basic one is the simple electronic signature, and it is defined as data in electronic form which are attached or logically associated with another data in electronic form, and which is used by the signatory to sign. Then there is advanced electronic signature, which can be without qualified certificate or with qualified certificate. And for this, there are some requirements or more requirements that needs to be fulfilled in order to think about this, or in order to prove that this signature is advanced electronic signature. These requirements are that the signature should be uniquely linked to the signatory, that the signature should be capable of identifying the signatory. It should be created using electronic signature creation data that the signatory can, with a high level of confidence, use under his sole control, which is quite important and which makes usually in practice the biggest problem in order to think about some signature or to set that some signature is advanced. And the last requirement is that the signature should be linked to the data signed therewith in such a way that any subsequent change in the data is detectable. Then there is the highest form of the electronic signature, which is qualified electronic signature. And the definition of this signature is that it's advanced electronic signature that is created by a qualified electronic signature creation device, and which is based on qualified certificate for electronic signatures. Then there is, then came eIDAS 2.0, which does not change in any way the definition of electronic signature. So the definitions are still the same. The only thing that is like in addition that eIDAS 2.0 brain is the European Digital Identity Wallet that should allow natural persons the ability to sign by means of a qualified electronic signature free of charge. And but it may be limited to only non-professional purposes. Now on the next slide, which we borrowed from the company Safira SRO, we show you the table of signatures and situations, because not every level of electronic signature is suitable or appropriate for each situation. For example, the first row is internal processes, because for internal processes, the most appropriate signature is the simple electronic signature, but also consent to audit trail and advanced electronic signature without qualified certificate is possible, but maybe not like the best one. Then there are private legal acts for which you can use simple electronic signature, advanced electronic signature without qualified certificate. And you can also use the advanced electronic signature with qualified certificate or qualified electronic signatures, but they are just optional. They are depending on application of electronic signature. It's up to you to consider if they are the best option or not. Then the third situations are legal acts against public administration, in which case there is prescribed that you should use advanced electronic signature with qualified certificate or qualified electronic signature. And then there are cross-border legal acts for which all electronic signatures are possible, except the consent to the audit trail. And the best one is the qualified electronic signature. And the reason for that is that the qualified electronic signature is used and recognized throughout the whole European Union. On next slide, we have an overview of levels of electronic signature. I already told you the definitions, so I will skip them. But I would like to provide you with some examples. What really is which type of level of electronic signature or what can be these levels of electronic signature. Because, for example, the simple electronic signature can be, for example, SMS code that you put somewhere. It can be scanning of handwritten signature without biometry. It can be first transaction or just email with a written name and surname. But there is some discussion about provability of this email with written name and surname, if it's really a simple electronic signature or not. From customer experience point of view, the difficulty for the client is low, and the implementation costs from IT point of view are also relatively low. Then there is advanced electronic signature, example of which is public key infrastructure, which involves the use of certificates and cryptographic keys or transaction containing a unique code. The difficulty for the client is low again, but the implementation costs from IT point of view are bigger than comparing to the simple electronic signature. Then we have qualified electronic signature, example of which is qualified certificate issued by certification authority on the device, USB sticks or smart card. And with this signature, the difficulty for the client is quite high. And the reason for that is that the client needs to do something in order to have the qualified electronic signature. The client usually need to go to post office or the certification authority in order to have this type of level of signature. But from IT point of view, the implementation costs are again lower comparing to advanced electronic signature because the burden is here with the client and not with the company. And then, of course, we have here the signature on a paper, which is easy for the client, and also the implementation costs are zero because you don't need to do anything to it because you already use it. And now I will just briefly would like to inform you that the important thing that I would like to emphasize is that not every level of electronic signature can also identify the person who signs the document. So in some cases, you need to identify also the person. And this slide provide you with examples of methods how you can identify the signatory, but this is really country specific. So if you would like to use some type of these identification, please at first check your regulatory background if this thing is also possible in your country. There is, for example, the identification similar to physical identification through technical means, which is made via taking a selfie or taking a video, which is possible in some countries. But for example, in Czech Republic, it is not possible to use this form of identification. And lastly, but not least, I would like to again emphasize what I already told, that electronic signature is not equal to electronic identification. Only some levels of electronic signature can identify the person who signs the document. And this one is equal, or European Digital Identity Wallet should help the customers or should bring a new option, or that you will be able to sign the document with European Digital Identity Wallet that is brought by eIDAS 2.0. And that is all from our side. We thank you for your attention and give the floor back to the studio.
Thank you very much for your great presentation. Let me ask you one question. Is only a qualified electronic signature of the highest level equal to a handwritten signature on paper?
Okay, that's a good question. We are posed by this several times. In eIDAS, there is something like ex lege fiction that the highest level of electronic signature, so qualified electronic signature, is equal to handwritten signature. But I as I wanted to say in my part, it doesn't mean that all other type of electronic signatures are not enough, are not equal to handwritten signature. Due to eIDAS, we in the European Union have a confirmation that the person that uses qualified electronic signature doesn't have, let's say, any legal problem with proving that his legal action is signed properly. But as we have a contractual freedom, you can decide with your counterpart that you will recognize also other types of signing. So I hope that it's clarified this issue. That what is let's say the conclusion is that if you use the qualified electronic signature, you should be guaranteed by law in the whole European Union that your signature will not be like disputed or rejected. Yeah. So, but there are also other forms to be recognized as.
Thank you. Maybe one other question: do EU member states have to transpose eIDAS into national legislation, and when?
Actually, it's also quite a common question from the market that we meet quite a lot. No, the eIDAS is a regulation, which means that it's directly applicable in all EU countries and in all EU member states. And it means that there is no transposition, that the client or the party, the company does not need to wait to any local local laws or transposition into local laws, because as it is, the regulation is applicable as it is. We are just waiting, or we may wait for some regulatory technical standards or some additional like explanatory documents at the beginning of the presentation, but like the main text is already given by the regulation, and there is no need to wait for the transposition.
Maybe just one tiny additional remark. Usually, the member states have to adopt a national legal framework that would vest some public authorities with supervisory function, and also fines, sanctions for breach of European regulations are usually provided by national law, but it doesn't concern the scheme and the rules themselves. It only enables the enforcement of rules in different member states. So we can expect that member states may adopt some national legislation that would add, let's say, the supervisor and enforcement framework.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're happy to be with you today.
Thank you for coming. So now we will get a little bit more technical. Our next speaker is my colleague from Monet Plus, Jiří Změlík. Take us, please, 1 second, and after this short break, we will be back in our studio. We are back, and here in studio is with me my colleague Jiří Změlík. Hi, Jiří, nice to have you here.
Hello, Anka.
So you will tell us more on system architecture for electronic signature. It's over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Hanka, and I guess we can get to it. So at the very beginning, we can ask a simple question: why to sign electronically? I guess it would have been more legit to ask this 25, 30 years ago when there were first electronic signatures emerging globally. But even after all this time, I don't really think that to digitally sign on a regular basis is not something that is widely accepted, not only in the organizations, but also, let's say, when we speak about the general public. On the other hand, I think that the time has never been better, not just because, let's say, we have right now the perfect tool to do so, and by the tool, I mean smartphones and different applications, even though you can also use a different kind of tools. But also, I would say that even all of us, we are sort of ready to embrace this kind of a solution simply by just being technologically advanced enough, and also, for example, by going through some more complicated periods, such as with COVID, when most of us, we have learned a lot of new things and learned to quickly adapt to the situation. And now I think that if you will not have to go, for example, to the bank to sign some documents or services or products that you potentially buy, and you could do this from wherever, just using, for example, your smartphone or tablet, like you would never want to do it any other way again. And then we have lots of other reasons, such as printing and just everything related to the flow of the beginning of the document all the way through printing, scanning, and then just archiving in some systems. I believe that going paperless is something that is one of the main drivers in modern organizations, and it simply everything makes sense here. At the same time, if we all start signing electronically, we also definitely raise up the security level of those signatures, simply because of very traceable audit trails connected with the user, with the document, and let's say when using also a timestamp, we can fix it strictly in time as well. So there are many reasons, and I believe that signing electronically is something that we should do now, all of us in organizations or as a general public. So how we can sign documents now? There's two, I would say, main principles. One is a local electronic signature, so something that, let's say, a lot of us is kind of familiar with. For this, we need some kind of a device, typically in the form of a smart card, or it can also be its different form factors, some kind of a USB hardware token. And the key and certificate for the qualified signature we have in our full control, in our hands, securely stored on this device. This device also has to be certified and listed on the European Trusted List as a qualified signature creation device. If we basically need to sign the document, we do it with this tool that also serves as a natural second factor, because we have to have that card and basically express our will by putting in the PIN number or the secret to sign the document. Certificates have its validity, and they have to be renewed periodically. So me, as a user, I have to pay attention until when is my certificate valid. And then if I want to continue signing, I have to renew it myself. There's a very nice advantage of using signing locally, for example, with a smart card, because it can also serve to multiple very handy purposes. So first of all, it can serve as an employee badge, so like a visual ID that I can carry on myself, for example, in the healthcare environment or so. I can also use different chips embedded to the card for like logging into systems and applications that I use on a regular basis, whether that is logging into the computer, logging into VPN or remote desktop or any other third-party application. And if I have contactless chip in it, I can also use it for the physical security, so for example, moving securely within the company. So it can actually be a very multi-purpose tool. However, contrary to this, and what we will be speaking about today is signing remotely. Remotely on a qualified level, it is good to be said. Why remotely? It's because the key and the certificate is not within my full possession. However, it is securely stored in some protected environment on the server. But if I do not have this key and certificate in my hands, I have to somehow express my will that I want to authorize signing the document. So for this, I need some kind of a tool. Most likely this is going to be a smartphone application or application in a tablet. But as well, it could be a smart card again, or its different form factors. However, in this time, as I said, we're signing remotely, so I don't have the possession of the certificates, but when this, for example, needs to be renewed, it happens automatically. So that's, I would say, a great benefit. It also gives us multiple benefits. For example, that I can do and do this signing procedure completely passwordless. So I don't have to put in any passwords, any pins, so no one can really see it. If they look over my shoulder or something, I can simply use the biometrics, so expose my face or my fingerprint in order to express the will to sign it. Then, as I mentioned, we don't have to worry about the validity of the certificates because it is happening automatically. And last but definitely not least, in the case that I unfortunately lose the tool, so if I damage the phone or forget it somewhere or it gets stolen, I don't actually lose those keys and certificates because all I need to do is to authorize a new tool and then I can still use it. So, but the biggest not pain, but I would say the most fragile thing is the credibility of the remote electronic signature. So in order to myself being able to express my will to sign it and just make it 100% valid that it was me and it wasn't someone else, and in order to prevent from any misuses, it has to be very specifically set, and it is by different standards and regulations, how to secure this. So basically this is done by two pillars. Of course, the technical solution of the whole system have to be in full compliance and certified, but also the holder's level of the control over the key is the main thing. So there are two general levels, sole control assurance level 1 and 2. I think that the SCAL 1 is something that we don't really need to waste our time with because it's simply not good enough for example, signing bigger contracts and especially outside of the organization. But one of the biggest differences between SCAL 1 and SCAL 2 is that if I want to proceed with signing a document, I have to, or I am creating something that's called signature creation data that consists of three main attributes. First of them, it's the identification of myself as a user. Secondly, it's the identification of the document. And a third thing is identification of the key and certificate. So if all this is done correctly and it is evaluated as valid, it basically gives us a very good audit trail of the whole procedure, and we can make sure that, for example, I wanted really to sign this document and I so did. So this is the architecture of the signing solution that is specified by eIDAS 2. you can see it is necessary to fulfill the SCAL2 level. And there are two main areas. One is interaction with the user, so some kind of a user interface, and then the signing part. So the user interface is consisting mainly from this authentication and authorization tool. Let's assume it's going to be the smartphone app, through which I communicate with some application where I want to create the signature for. So if this is happening and I'm expressing my will to sign this document with my qualified signature, the application is communicating with the server signing application inside of the signing layer. This application receives the data and creates a hash out of the document and sends it over to the protected environment of the QSCD device to a signature activation module that verifies if all the attributes are valid. If they are valid, it forwards the package into the HSM, the hardware security module, that creates the signature and sends it over back to the server signing application that enriches with the signature the former document, and I receive it back signed. You can also see certification authority and registration authority, which is a necessary part of the system, but we'll be speaking about that in the next slide. Of course, all the parts of the signing solutions are very strictly set by different standards and regulations. So the solution of our company, of course, is fully in compliance. So however kind of complicated this may sound on the previous slide, over here you can see that from the signer point of view, the end user point of view, it is extremely easy and user-friendly, and I would say is one of the reasons why I think this could be very widely adopted quickly. So first of all, let's assume I have some kind of a web-based portal where I can drag and drop a document to be signed. In this case, it's a PDF document, and the next step is that I receive a push notification on my phone or tablet that is asking me to express my will to sign this document. There is a principle that has to be also in compliance with that's set by eIDAS 2, and that's a principle called vis-a-vis. What you see is what you sign. So the user has to know to 100% identify and agree with the document itself. So you can see that on my application, I can see the document, I can see its name, and some other attributes about date and time. And if I approve that I want to sign this document, which I am very likely to do with by biometrics, if for some reason I'm not able to do it, I can still use a secure 6-digit PIN number, and I simply end up with a signed document. So this is how easy that is. Regarding to signing different data and its formats, again, this is well described in the standards. And you can sign not only PDF documents, but also CMS, XMLs, and even sets of documents together. And also the type of the signature can level up depending on the customer's needs. So, but when we have a look at the whole system for remote signing, which is not just the signing part, we can tell that this whole system can be fully delivered by our company Monet Plus. In this case, the whole environment, the whole ecosystem is modular. So if there is a company that wants to bring up remote signing solution up on a greenfield, we're able to do so. But if you are from a company that already has some of these parts of the systems, like we can just deliver a single part, so you never order anything that you don't really need. If you look at it from the user point of view again, the user is at the right bottom corner and has potentially available multiple tools. So you can see again, it's a smartphone, or it can be the card again. And in a modern company, there typically the user is interacting with many business applications on a daily basis. Some of those business applications will quite likely require the user every now and again to authenticate himself or herself on some security level. So we are able to provide this blue area, this security layer, that is able to do so. So every time my authentication is needed, the specific business application will speak to the identity provider to ask to securely authenticate myself, which I can do with the help of the devices. And this identity provider also knows exactly what tools I'm able to use. So once I'm authenticated, it's also quite likely that I will need to sign something within this application. In this case, the blue layer, the security layer, would start a new process needed for the signing of the document, like I have described 2 slides ago. But in this case, if I need a valid certificate. If I have one, it's great, we can proceed. If I do not, for some reason, there is a new process started, and that's an orchestration of a certificate that I will get issued by the certification authority. This authority will be able to get through the orchestrator to the needed data about myself as a person from some source of identities. And once the whole process is done, I receive a valid certificate and I can proceed with the signing. You can also see the timestamping authority that is connected to the system, and then if this is a required module, that it could also be part of the digital signature. There was a lot of description about what kind of electronic signature we can use for what. So I think we don't really need to spend that much time with this slide because we are focusing about the qualified electronic signature. I would maybe say one thing, that if we want to do the advanced signing, it'll be something that's quite appropriate for internal signing in a company, but for anything else outside of the perimeter or with signing some high valuable documents, it is definitely very recommended to use a qualified electronic signature. You can also see our remote signing ecosystem from a little bit of a different graphic view. So whatever basically will be welcomed in your potential signing system can be delivered by us. About our solution, also from a different perspective, it was certified by Austrian laboratory ACID. We are to be seen on the trusted list of the European Union. The whole solution is certified with the use of Entrust XC and Shield HSMs. We could also potentially certify this with the use of a different HSMs, but that would also depend on the requirements from the customer and the vendor of the HSM. And also, we have successfully passed plug tests from an organization called ETSI that basically verifies the signed data that we have sent to this organization, and they have verified that everything is in 100% compliance with whatever was required. So this is from me everything. Thanks very much for the attention, and I'm very happy to speak to you later on if you would find this solution interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jiří, for your presentation. Are you ready for some questions?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. When is it necessary to interact with the authorization server within RS?
So this would have to be done every single time prior to signing a document, and also every time when a new user gets onboarded, he or she needs to be verified, so there will be another interaction.
OK, perfect. And other question, can the entire signing process be done using only a mobile phone, or do I need a computer at any time?
Of course, this can be done fully with just the use of the smartphone or tablet. I know that in this specific use case, we showed it with the combination of a laptop, but it can be done just simply on the device, either through just the use of the web browser, or eventually, if the system is integrated in some third-party application that we need to sign the documents into, it is also possible to use it right within the application.
OK, thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for being here with us. The first part of our conference is behind us, and it is time for a short break. We will be back in 10 minutes, and after the break, we will continue with the topic identity verification. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope we are all back and ready for the second part of our virtual conference. As I mentioned before the break, we will focus on the identity verification now. I'm so happy to welcome my colleague from Monet Plus, Vašek Mladěnka, to the studio. Hello, Vašek. It's yours.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on the discussion today. I'm happy to be here in Bratislava. It's beautiful weather here. Before I start maybe with the presentation or maybe a little insight on the identity verification topic, I noticed some of the questions in the audience. I might try to respond on that. Essentially on the digital identity, European digital identity topic. I mean, a question whether if you're a person outside the European Union, whether you can use that. Unfortunately, no. In the first phase of the digital identity wallet project, the target solution is intended for the citizens of the European Union. So this is supposed to be available, but still there is some time before we come to the up and running solutions on the market. So it will be more than probably 2-3 years time. So this will take some time. In the meantime, there are number of solutions and technologies available on the market that number of companies are offering, also that are available to non-European citizens. Thanks for the opportunity, and maybe Jiří already outlined that. Maybe if you are a bigger company, you have thousands of employees, you have thousands of clients, it might be relevant to consider that you build some electronic signing competence internally. So that's the reason why also Jiří outlined maybe some options for building this competence internally for a company. And when we're speaking about the need of the signing, I mean, colleagues from the Ernst & Young company already mentioned that it's very important to also clarify and confirm the identity of the person that is about to sign electronically a document. So in my short overview, I will just maybe try to point out some of the latest trends, what we see, what companies implement, how they approach that, and what can be potentially relevant to you as well. Maybe over the years, digital identity went through a number of through evolution. It's highly regulated. It's very impacted by the technology, but most importantly, over the years, it's impacted by the user expectations. And what we see very highly on the market, that there's a significant shift from the users, especially in the retailing companies, to move towards the smartphones and mobile devices. In fact, we see a big shift from the web-based applications towards the mobile devices. And that's very important to mention, that's very important to outline and have in mind. It's not 100%, but it's the preferred option these days. And when we see and talk with companies about the mobile devices and using them as a identity verification tool, it's very close to have it also as a digital signing device, because you need to build the high level of trust, high level of security towards the device, towards the whole ecosystem, and if implemented and designed properly, moving it towards the digital signing competencies could be very, very quick win. So maybe just to give you a bit of insight of the implementation approaches and the trends, we need to maybe talk more about the roles that we may in the whole ecosystems, because you as a person could be an employee of a company, you can be a partner of an employee providing some negotiation with third parties to sign a contract, or you can simply be a customer who is willing to get some new services, sign a new contract on new services with a particular institutions. And all of these group of users and roles have different requirements and maybe different prepositions to match. So maybe I'll first have a look in the enterprise level scope. If you are an employee, if you are a partner of an employee of a company, then we see that from the identity verification, there are some requirements that the organizations tend to focus on. The first one is focusing on multi-factor authentication. And for number of interactions that you have within the organization, you very likely approach a computer, you very likely approach your organization from a remote location, so using a VPN solution, and you very likely approach your company through web and mobile applications. So that's the first requirement, that we want to have strong authentication at that level. Whenever it's possible, the companies tends to prefer passwordless authentication. Implementing single sign-on features, multi-factor authentications with support of biometrics, any such a combination would help you to avoid just forcing employees and your contractors to have 12, 18, 24 characters strong passwords, which at the end no one will remember. And within the organization, not only authentication is relevant, we see number of workflows, number of authorization requests that needs to be signed, and also more and more this requirement of the electronic signature. So all of these authorization flows are also very relevant. And what is very tied towards the organization, because the organization, most companies and firms, it's not only the digital ecosystem. It's also about physical assets. It's also about buildings. It's also about some dedicated areas where you need to make sure that physical access is also granted only to a dedicated person. So all of these needs to be combined within the authentication and identity verification schemes. In terms of the digital workplace, we see that it's very relevant to combine the crucial aspects. It enables multi-factor authentication, it enables passwordless authentication, it enables electronic signatures, it's protecting the assets that the employees are using, whether it's mobile device, it's tablet, it's a dedicated personal computer. it has the ability to work with the applications that are within the perimeter of the organization, on-premise or are in the cloud, because cloud and applications are more and more used within the organization. And definitely, it needs to be localized. It needs to adapt on the processes of the organization. It needs to speak the language the employee understands. So that's all the requirements that needs to be tied together. I mean, from the solution that we're building in digital identity ecosystem, we try to build an ecosystem that it's enabling users use really the mobile devices and mobile devices, a strong authentication and multi-factor authentication tool, that it's opening the access towards operating systems, whether these are on your computer or some virtual desktops that you need to access probably as an administrator of a remote location. That are also enabling secured remote access to the organization assets, so supporting all the VPN scenarios, or whether you're using simply third-party applications that are maybe web-based, that are cloud applications, and you need to sign it. So really on the top level of single sign-on techniques to approach the third-party or remote cloud applications with the protection of the two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. One simple example of accessing Google Workplace that I've been just demonstrating on the slides. But also I can use the same mobile device to access the physical premises of the organization. I'm happy to share that not only Logic is these days supported, but we have the support of HID standards. We are ongoing cooperation with many other companies. So during next few months, we hopefully will be able to support all of the most relevant physical accessing ecosystem and scenarios. So there are a number of use cases where I want to enforce the multi-factor authentication to support single sign-on, to enable it in the remote access to data, to enable it in the logging of cloud and third-party applications, because these are within the organizations more and more often. Enforce some additional authentication for privileged accounts or administration applications. So it's very important, combined with the physical access devices, ecosystems, and also, very importantly, about the topic today, with the electronic signature. So that's from the maybe enterprise perspective towards the employees, but more and more companies is approaching customers and potential customers to the digital networks, through web-based applications, through mobile applications, effectively be with the customer 24 hours a day, and enable them to personalize their content, be the partner whenever they need it. From the identity verification perspective on the customer side, it's slightly different. I mean, if you're an organization, then you probably can force the employees to do something differently. But from the customer perspective, you need to focus on customer requirements and customer satisfaction. So onboarding to new application, it really needs to be painless, it needs to be seamless, it needs to be one click and you're there. Preferably, if you are sole organization, which is your, for example, bank or investment company, you under the AML regulation, you want to enable an onboarding procedure that is with the one click, but it's not really bothering the user with some selfies, scanning documents, having to go to branch. You even don't want to print the contracts and send these to the customer via courier. That's obviously additional costs. So this needs to be taken into account with the ability to serve 24 hours a day, be able to cover high peaks, high performance scenarios. If you have millions of users, then probably this is no go that you have some performance issue. And if you're a regulated business, then essentially risk management, legal requirements, and compliance, this is something that needs to be met in all of these requirements in terms of identity verification ecosystem. What we've seen in the past and should help us introduce and be prepared for the future as well is on the web-based applications, but not only for the web-based. It's about the ecosystem about identity federation ecosystems. I really don't want to build identity and security within business applications, because if I'm providing a number of business applications, then would probably need to take care about each and every applications. We want to enable organizations to build and centralize identity and access management, because the first thing is cheaper to run and operate. It delivers additional value to users, because you can enable single sign-on features. But it also accelerates the delivery of new products, because outsourcing authentication, authorization, signing features to one dedicated centralized identity and access management solution, and let the business application focus on their business proposition, their business value, and you can provide security and legal compliance as a service to them, then it's actually an approach that's provide benefits. In terms of the digital identity ecosystem, standardization really matters. Maybe OpenID Connect, if it's familiar to you as a technology standard, hopefully is your best friend. And if not, then you need to think about it. And I will maybe capture this a bit later. But not, as I mentioned at the beginning, web-based applications are very important, but mobile applications are getting these days more and more relevant. And also we want to support companies in developing new mobile applications, new mobile products quicker, but with a certain level of security compliance, with a legal requirements compliance. So supporting the organization with number of SDKs, mobile accelerators, enablers that will help you to very quickly enable it within the application, push notifications, biometrics, signing features, user onboarding. This is everything that will help your apps and help your app development team to focus really on the product definition. You can reuse it. It will shortline the development cycle. It will help you to reduce costs on the development cycle. And what is also very important, it helps you to mitigate risk of frauds and potential security issues. Because if you have some standardized the security layer, you can very effectively work also with less experienced developers, developing and creating the value for you, still maintaining the level of assurance that you need in the online applications. So some of the examples that we're really helping organizations and companies to focus to enable nicknameless login for web application as well. For example, using this QR code and with the combination of a mobile device with the support of biometrics, that's very relevant. The other very relevant topic is onboarding the user using another identity provider. Here on the example, we have the illustration of a logging to application using the Czech Bank ID ecosystem. Again, one-click procedure, very effective for onboarding the user towards the application. And hopefully, in very near future, as colleagues from Ernst & Young already mentioned, also with the European digital identity wallet. I mean, this is about to happen in the digital European market. It will be great opportunity for all of us to have one great onboarding method to new tools. Of course, it needs to be first adopted with the users, but hopefully this will happen very soon. So looking forward to the near future, and hopefully this will help you also with the development of online services. And we staying on the agenda, and if you are interested in that topic, we are here to, let's say, discuss this with you, how this can be effectively adopted. So thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss this with you today, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Vašek, for your presentation. Let me ask you one question. Why is Monet Plus developing its own solution when there are so many identity management and MFA solutions available for mobile?
Good question. Thank you. Well, the first thing is that yes, there are on the markets number of solutions, and you can sometimes adopt them with the new technology. But what we see on the market is that these technologies and these tools are tied to a specific ecosystem, tied to a specific scenario. And if we as an organization have multiple requirements, we do have multiple platforms, multiple scenarios, then essentially we need to combine it. And we've been not able to find a solution that will help us to cover all of these requirements. I mean, accessing the operating systems, accessing the VPNs, up a single cloud, and enabling the physical access and digital signing portfolio. So that's why we are focusing more on providing and developing and providing a solution that is based really on standards. It's very effectively to interconnect with all of these scenarios, to be plugged in with very different and multiple multi-application infrastructures. But this is the main driving reason.
Thank you for your explanation, and thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. You have a nice day then. Bye.
Like our first guest, our last guest will also join us online today. I welcome Mr. Sejcek from RLC, who will introduce us to the certification process for the new eIDAS 2 regulation. Nice to having you, Mr. Sejcek.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that everyone hears me and everyone sees my presentation. I'm here now instead of my colleague Martin Dudek, who prepared this presentation and who unfortunately had to join another project, so I'll try to substitute him. My presentation will concern on eIDAS from the point of view of certification processes, and also I will mention as a recap or repetition some news and some differences between eIDAS and eIDAS 2. It was mentioned in the first presentation by Tomáš and Christina from Ernst & Young, so I'll try to be very short, but I think that it's a useful recap for you. So, oops. What I want to mention today in my presentation, I will briefly speak about e-wallet, That means that I will follow up the EU presentation, the colleagues from Ernst & Young. Then I will focus on eIDAS area from the point of view of checking the compliance of services with the requirements and standards. Next, I will talk a little bit about how eIDAS requires auditing the new services. And at the end, we will hopefully have some time for a few questions. So, e-wallet, electronic European, European electronic wallet. What is it about? We can simply say that it's a mean of electronic identification. It has the possibility to be also used during the attendance control. Very important thing is that the user or the owner of the e-wallet can by himself decide which data he will provide about himself with which relying person and which data he will not provide. This is very useful and, by my opinion, very, very important feature. As it was already mentioned, the state has the obligation to ensure the issuance of at least one wallet for each citizen. Users may use the wallet or may not. It can be used both in public and private sectors. And the harmonized approach, and it was also mentioned by Tomáš and Christina, means that the approach to this wallet will be the same all over the member states of the European Union. Basically, we can say that the functionality of the e-wallet should provide an easy and user-friendly overview of all relying parties which the user shares the data with. And it should also allow users to track all carried out transactions. At the bottom of the slide, you can see the link where you can follow the other news about e-wallet. What else we can say about e-wallet? New attribute, new services. First of all, attributes, which means claims based on personal identification data and confirmation of required attributes. For this, I can use an example. For example, when query by relaying party on age of the sale of alcoholic beverages will only show whether or not the person is over 18 years, instead of showing any other information. The relying party needs to be able to verify the requested information without assessing other information about the wallet owner, which, for example, is not possible when we use the classic ID card, the plastic card for this purpose. There, the relying part, unfortunately, see all other information in spite of the fact that the party wants to know only if I am 18 plus or not. Other new services about new wallets, for example, generation of pseudonyms, peer-to-peer communication, user access of data on completed transactions via dashboard. User should be able to ask the relying party to delete personal data when there is some conflict with the rules of GDPR. The user should be able to report the party to the Office of Personal Data Protection if they receive an allegedly illegal or suspicious request of the data, and etc., etc. The Insurance of Implementing Act is assumed by the end of this year, and the obligation to have the service in place will be latest the end of 2026. And now we are getting to what this conference is about, which is what is new in eIDAS 2. I can say that eIDAS has redefined what the trust services actually is. Let's talk about what you as a customer can expect from these services when they are certified. As it was mentioned in the Ernst & Young presentation, existing types of trust services has been retained, which are issuing certificates for electronic signatures, for electronic seals, certificates for website authentication. All these three have already been defined as a qualified services and retained without any change. There is another, let's say, old trust service or trust service already defined by eIDAS, and that's the validation of the certificates of these all three types. And there is also no change between eIDAS and eIDAS 2. But we have new types defined by eIDAS 2, and these are those 4 bullets which are on the slide. That means issuing electronic confirmation of attributes, and then management of means of creating remote electronic signatures and remote electronic seals. This was mentioned very precisely in very detail in the technical presentation of Jiří Změlý. The third one is the electronic archiving service, and the last is electronic record book, something like electronic ledger. One thing which is also new is the obligation for internet browser providers to recognize qualified website authentication certificates in order to display the identity of the website owner in a user-friendly manner. So what will be changed as regards the scope of trust services? There are 3 important bullet points saying what's new. The first, maybe we can say the most important news is improving the information security by binding the eIDAS area with EU directive NIS2. Especially with article number 21, which deals with measures against cybersecurity risks. I will talk about it later. The second is improving the Q2S interoperability through the adopting of implementing acts. The change is in the way that earlier the Commission was only recommended to adopt implementing acts. But now, after the revision, after, let's say, coming to eIDAS 2, it is not only recommendation, but it is obligation for the EU Commission to adopt relevant implementing acts in a certain date. And the last bullet point, which describes what is changing and what is new, is the limitation of the validity of the QSCD certification of means only for 5 years, and in addition to that, with regular vulnerability assessment. This is also something which was not valid in the past. The period for validity was 6 years, so now it was shrinked only to 5 years. This slide is again a little bit recap about what was already said in the first presentation. That means it is listing or showing us the existing type of trust services. So I will mention only the fact that Remote sign and seal in the previous eIDAS was only trust building service, but now in eIDAS 2, it is approved to the level of qualified for service. Both of them, remote signing as well as remote sealing. A few words about qualified electronic signature. It was also mentioned here by Tomáš and Christina. The new thing is that creating a qualified electronic signature for natural persons will be free of charge. That's for first. And for second, the EU member states can take the appropriate measure so that free qualified electronic signatures were not used for non-professional purposes. The question is how they will limit the use of the signature for non-professional purposes. Realistically, probably only by making a commitment in the contract that the certificate profile will not contain entries and any other information about employer. But we will see how this will practically work. A new set of qualified trust service. It was again mentioned on one of my previous slides. So here we see them again. So issuing electronic confirmation of attributes, then verifying the validity of electronic confirmation of attributes. Here I can mention again the example that I'm in a pub and I have to demonstrate that I'm older than 18 years in order to get some alcoholic drinks and not to present and to show any further and any other information. Electronic archive of electronic data and electronic documents. What is new here is that now you can also archive the document. Up to now, it was that only the certificate of the document was stored for a long time, not the document itself. But now, both the metadata, that means the certificate, plus the document will be archived for a long term. And the last one, recording electronic data in an electronic record book. This is a service of trusted log, for example, an invoice book, an event log that must not be editable, must remain as it is. This can be used, for example, for some file services or trusted repositories, mentioned invoice books, etc. And now let's look in more detail after changes in some articles of eIDAS. So one change we can see in Article 15, that's the accessibility for disabled peoples. Now it is valid that the new obligation is to comply with the UN Convention of the Rights of the Disabled Persons. Up to now, it was just a recommended best practice, but now it's not only the recommendation, now it's an obligation. So that's article number 15. In article number 20, there are some other new changes, new rules. Article 20 is an oversight of qualified trust service providers, and the change is that qualified trust building service providers shall be audited by a conformity assessment body at least once in 2 years, once in 24 months. And the purpose of the audit is to check if the providers meet the requirements, A, set in this new regulation, eIDAS 2, but B, the requirements set in the already mentioned EU directive NIS 2. As I mentioned, it's especially the Article 21 dealing with measures to manage cybernetic risks. And there is another obligation after coming through this audit. The providers must submit the audit report to the supervisor authority no later than 3 days. 3 days after they receive the audit report. So in this we can see that the rules for the providers in case of improving information security are starting to be more strict. There is another new rule in Article 20, which is written in the red text, and that is the obligation that the provider must inform the supervisory authority at least 1 month before he will be audited. And that is because the supervisory authority needs to have a chance to participate during this audit as an observer. The question is, and it's not still clear, if this duty will be valid for certification and recertification audits only, or if it will cover also surveillance audits. I think we'll see how this question will be answered in the future. Here I would like to mention two important milestones as regards auditing. One milestone is valid for guaranteed trust services. That's the first one. In 24 months from the moment that eIDAS 2 is released, the Commission should assess whether it's necessary to adopt the implementing acts establishing the list of reference standards. So this says that the Commission shall assess during the 2 years. But the second milestone, it's more important. It is valid for not for guaranteed trust services, but for qualified trust services. And this milestone says that the Commission shall establish a list of reference standards with specifications and procedures for qualified trust services. This means that in the period of 12 months, we can expect first certification of quality trust services according to the new eIDAS 2. This is also a small recap from the first presentation speaking about a qualified electronic signature and saying that this qualified electronic signature is the only electronic signature that has the same legal effect as a handwritten signature. And the sentence in the Annex 1, which says that qualified certificates for electronic signature should contain an appropriate note in case that their data are contained in a qualified means. So this was valid in the previous eIDAS, and it remains in eIDAS 2 without any change. Jiří Změlík was talking about the two services, remote signing and remote sealing. So I just want to show on this slide the relevant standards that are used for auditing these services. Here we can see also the SCAL 1 and SCAL 2, which were both mentioned also by Jiří Změlík in his presentation. So I will now will not come into more details regard this topic. This is a picture that you have also seen in the technical presentation of Jiří Změlík. I want, in addition to that, only mention that if we are talking about qualified surveys, then it's essential that the requirements of the EU SCP policy, that's the text which is at the bottom of the slide I read, that this policy is met, which means that in practically both HSM and SEM modules that are used for these devices must have certification due to common criteria, which is according to the standard EN 419-211, which is mentioned in the slide and was by more detailed mentioned by Jiří Znělík in his presentation. This last slide, oops, I'm sorry, only shows a recapitulation of resources that have been used and where you can follow some other news. Sorry. Oops. So that's all from me. Thank you for the attention. It was a great pleasure for me to be here with you, and I think that I substituted my colleague Martin Dudek. And if there is a time for a few questions, so I'm prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Sejcek. It is a pleasure also for us to having you here. Yes, we have time for one question. Let me choose. Okay, can you explain us what is meant by saying that the free e-signatures in the European wallet are only used for non-professional purpose? What will they be used for?
There is a very simple answer to this question. By non-professional purposes, it primarily means that it will not be an employee certificate. That means that it is intended for use by non-business individuals. The thing is that it is possible to distinguish between acts that the people do as employees, so they use employee certificate, and the acts that they do like private persons with electronic wallet. So again, it means that this is not treated as an employee certificate.
Thank you very much for your answer. And again, thank you for being here with us.
With pleasure for me. Thank you.
Mr. Sejcek was our last guest today. I believe you enjoyed our conference. And finally, I would like to thank you all once again for attending. And I would like to give a special thanks to all our speakers for their insightful presentations, and also to our partners and great team. Thank you very much. For now, I wish you all a wonderful day, and goodbye.